If you're not into Warhammer lore, that might be confusing. On the other hand, why would you watch this if you're not into it? Boltgun is a new first-person shooter from Orange Digital. It goes for a retro aesthetic, which everyone over the internet call boomer shooters. What it means is that it's a very simple game. If you expect some twists and turns in story, some RPG elements or maybe character development, then you clearly came to the wrong place. Okay, let's start with the story first. The premise of the game is quite simple. Your name is Malum Kaido, and you are Ultramarine. No.
Ultramarine.
And Stone God nonetheless. You are sent to the planet of Graia to investigate the possibility of chaos activity. But your drop pod is crashed in the process, and if there were only a handful of you at the beginning, now it's only you. Just like in Doom, you're a one-man army crushing everything before you into dust. To be fair, you would have a servo skull as a companion.
This servo skull will guide you.
But he's only good for obvious information and cracking some lame jokes. To make things worse, chaos activity is like super active. This whole planet is filled with heretics. Kinda make it a little bit easier for you. If it moves, just shoot it. Boltgun is a sequel to Space Marine. Well, not a direct sequel, more like a spiritual sequel. You have to deal with chaos mass that was left after the Battle of Captain Titus. And your main goal is to get to Chaos Sorcerer. And that's pretty much it. That's the whole story. So now let's check the gameplay. First thing you will notice immediately is overall feel of Malum's movement. He's huge and heavy, but still very agile. With every step you feel the weight.
Same way heretics would feel it once on top of them.
And despite the name, the only thing you have on you is a chainsaw sword. That kinda sucks.
Damn!
But it wouldn't take you too long to get to the one and only Boltgun. And this time it's not just a glorified machine gun, as in other Warhammer games. Boltgun is being a viable option throughout the whole game. It sounds awesome, it looks awesome, and it's super effective. Just a few bolts hitting a target will make it disappear in a cloud of blood and organs flying all over the place. Once you would play with it enough and chill a little, you'll probably notice a number in the right bottom corner. This stands for the strength of your weapon. This came directly from tabletop, and it's a stat that is compared to enemy toughness stat. How do you know the enemy toughness stat, you might ask? Well, it's quite simple. It's right there in the name. In a tabletop, you will roll d6 to compare your strength against their toughness. For example, if these stats are the same, your d6 rolls should be 4 or more, meaning 50% chance. And if your strength is lower than the toughness of enemy, you would need to roll at least 5 or more. Worst case scenario is when your strength is half or even less enemy toughness, as it will require you to roll only 6. My point? This exact idea is integrated in the game. So even though you can, and probably will, use the boltgun on every enemy in the game, you should probably switch your weapon to something more powerful when fighting a higher demons. And at the same time, there is no point in wasting a meltgun shot on a cultist, when a regular shotgun to the face will work just fine. You might point out that bigger guns do more damage, no shit, but still, this is just another little detail that shows that developers knew what they were doing, and they're quite familiar with the lore and world of Warhammer 40k. Speaking of which, beside the boltgun, you will also find a shotgun, plasma gun, heavy bolter, vengeance launcher, volkite gun, meltgun, and lastly, graph cannon. Boltgun is your primary weapon. It does not mean that it is going to be your last resort weapon. It completely melts through the crowds of smaller enemies, such as cultists or Norblings, which makes sense as it's actually what it was created for, not to fight another Space Marines and especially Terminators. Shotgun? Well, it's a shotgun. Damage is comparable to Boltgun, but it's more of a burst damage and in close range. Plasma gun is a perfect solution for those tough enemies who just refuses to die, or again, a crowd of occultists. It fires slowly, it reloads slowly, and for some reason you cannot switch from it to anything else while it's cooling down. Not that it takes a lot of time, but these moments are noticeable. Alternatively, you can always just hold M1 for quick shots from it, but you know, plasma gun is not known for its stability in the world of 40k. Heavy bolter is a bolter's older brother. will always be the parent's favorite, and it's constantly brought up to light in every conversation. It shoots faster, it deals more damage, and you don't need to reload it. Vengeance is a grenade launcher, but it does not go into this stupid arch. It goes directly to the face, so hard that it plunges itself into the flesh of your enemies and explodes a few moments later. Boltgun is a ray weapon. Its technology is pre-Imperium and dates back to the age of technology. It will hit up your enemies until they explode. Boltgun does have a donut-shaped projectile that does not stop for anything, and it does some ridiculous amount of damage, even to bosses. And lastly, Grav Cannon. It's a point-and-click gun, with a mentality of to hell with everything in that general direction. And you would need all of them to purge all those heretics. Beside the regular cultists, you will find a Chaos Space Marines in regular and Terminator varieties. They even do have a Chaos Champions. They actually does have so many of those champions that I've started to suspect that the status of Chaos Champion is something like a medal for participation. You just need to ask. But to be fair, they are one of the more tougher enemies. And to be even more annoying, they are mostly melee fighters and will chase you around the map until one of you will be dead. You could try to duel them fair and square using your chainsaw, but there are no invincibility frames, so other enemies can still shoot you. And secondly, the champion would also not going to just stand there, so you know, it might not end well for you. And once you kill him and finally think, oh, it's all over, the bastard will resurrect right before your eyes. Also, there are demons, like a lot of demons. Pink horrors that will split into blue horrors once defeated, flamers of Zinch, and a goddamn plague toads. I swear, these things are made out of rubber, and bullets just don't penetrate it. And lastly, Lords of Change and Unclean Ones. Yes, with S. You will find multiple great diamonds throughout the game. And at first, it doesn't make any sense. In tabletop, even if you are stun gun of Space Marine. I mean, it's a great Unclean One. If you ever did manage to defeat a Great Diamond with just a single Space Marine, please leave a comment down below, so I would know that you are lying. But in the Boltgun, you cannot fail, as you are under protection of a plot. You are
Ultramarine.
An Ultramarine could not be defeated, no matter the odds. Even worse, you have a name. This alone makes every Chaos side unit doomed right from the start. You are actually such an Ultramarine that if you're going to stand still, Malum will start to read into Codex Astartes to become an even better Ultramarine. Okay, now what about the presentation? Boltgun goes for a retro look, so it does remind you of older games, such as Doom or Quake. But it's not the same as any of them. To begin with, the environment and enemies are much more detailed. What a surprise. But you can always change it in settings, choosing the desired level of pixelization. Areas are looking as if they were directly taken from the books on the Warhammer 40k. All the high Gothic cathedral architecture or industrial looks of grim, dark future. Same goes for enemy models, they're absolutely on point. There is one effect that especially stands out. By the end of Act 1, you will have a stage with some sort of warp rip. That, I don't know, it just looks weird, like you can see directly into a warp, and I love it. What about the sound? The music is okay. There are no like outstanding tracks, but the ones you have are good. But sound effects on the other hand are flawless. Every gun sounds exactly as you would have imagined, and sounds of enemies splattering is delightful. And don't forget about the most important addition to the game, taunt button.
I am the wrath of the goddess. I smell. I'll rip you to pieces. I'll tear you from me.
There are countless quotes you can get from Malum, which both are quite epic and at the same time pretty much useless, as enemies just don't care about it at all. But it helps you to be more immersed. So what, is it a perfect game? Boltgun does have a few setbacks, not much, but they are there. And the most important one for me is that they stop throwing new stuff at you somewhere in the middle. Roughly in the middle of the second act, you will meet a great Unclean One. And that's it, no more new enemies. The only thing that's left are jump packs and Grav Cannon, but gameplay would not change. I mean, it's not like it's bad, more like it feels a little prolonged for the sake of prolonging. It might be completely up your alley if you just really like the game and want it to go on. Secondly, This is one of those where the hell do I go kind of game. Same as Doom 2016, this game does have a lot of corridors and closed doors, for which you would need to find a key marked with Greek alphabet. But unlike Doom, you don't have a map, so you constantly get lost trying to find that goddamn door. Or maybe it's just me. My point is that it could be solved so easily, even if we're going to go from lore perspective, stating that this is your first time on this planet and you have no idea on the surroundings. I mean, you still have a server skull who should have some information on this planet, like a map, or at least it could scan a goddamn place. And lastly, I know this is total on me, but still, these goddamn toads. These bullet sponges wasted so much of my time and ammo. To hell with them. But overall, this is a good first-person shooter and really good Warhammer 40k game. Ours Digital clearly does know its Warhammer lore and rules of a tabletop game. Well, for the most parts. But they did pour their soul into it, and it shows. Even though it's still just a simple game, it still feels like a true Warhammer game. And it works! A game in 2023 that works? Madness! So yes, even if you're not a Warhammer fan, just give it a try.
Space Marine, the holy angel of Emperor, that is sent to this unholy place to purge the heretics in the name of the Imperium. He's perfect both physically and mentally. His vision will not be clouded by the chaos corruption. His goal is clear. Death.